Hi, this is Pastor Troy Neer coming at you with another midweek recap of last Sunday's message. Now, this week we continued in our book of Ephesians, but I don't think we did a video last week, but okay, fine. I think actually, so continuing the book of Ephesians, like chapter 2, but last week we did chapter 1 and, okay, well, hold on. So this week we continued the book of Ephesians, whereas last week we did chapter 1. This week we entered into chapter 2, and our reading from there is verses 11 through 22. And I want to point out just a couple of interesting things about that. One, the Apostle Paul talks about a wall of hostility between the Jews and the Gentiles. Now what's fascinating about this is that the Apostle Paul is actually describing what was at one time a literal wall. There was a wall in the temple separating where Jews could go and Gentiles could not. And on that wall, there was a plaque that read that no Gentile may go beyond this point. And if he does so, he'll have himself to blame. His own death ensues. Now, Paul's point is not to talk so much about the distinction between the Jews and the Gentiles, but his point there is to bring out that wall symbolized the law of God. The law was the marker of who was righteous and who was not. And if you crossed that law, in other words, if you weren't righteous, your death was on your own head. Now, God wishes that all people would be saved. We all have this same thing staring up at us. It's the law of God. And that law says that each one of us are guilty and worthy of death. And so it's fascinating that if God truly does wish for all people to be saved, he's going to have to do something about that wall, about that law. Jesus Christ is going to have to do something to remove the barrier of the law. What Paul says is this: for Jesus Christ himself is our peace, who has made us both one and has broken down in his flesh the dividing wall of hostility by abolishing the law of commandments and ordinances, that he might create himself one new man in place of the two, so making peace. Now, two things right there. That Jesus Christ in his flesh broke down that wall. And how did he do it? By abolishing the law of commandments and ordinances. In order for Jesus Christ to remove the barrier between us and God, to remove the wall that keeps us from entering into God's presence, he has to do something. He has to fulfill the requirements of the law. That wall is the law. It symbolizes the law. And Jesus Christ then has to fulfill the requirements of the law. He does that in two ways. One, he fulfills the requirements of the law perfectly in his obedient life. Everything that the law commands, Jesus did. And he did it perfectly. The law also requires something else. That was where there is disobedience, where there is a breaking of the law requires death. It requires judgment. And Jesus Christ fulfilled that too. Not for his own sin, of course, but for yours. And if Jesus Christ fulfills the law, both in regards to obedience and in regards to judgment, then what power does the law have left? Jesus Christ has fulfilled all the requirements of the law on your behalf. And so when you believe upon Jesus Christ, when you've been baptized into his name, the law can no longer look at you and accuse, because Jesus Christ has fulfilled all the requirements of the law for you. I'm Pastor Troy Neer of St. Peter's Lutheran Church in Shaker Heights, Ohio, where we have received that gospel. We have been made one in Christ, and so we want to embrace the world around us with the love of Jesus Christ. Have a blessed week.